3, 2, 1.
You ready?
You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter, here. I've got a review here for another Best Picture nominee for the Oscars coming up. Got a review for Minari, which is directed and written by Lee Isaac Chung. He also did a film. He's done a couple of films. He did a film called oh God, am I going to try to say that? Oh my gosh, Mun Yuragombo. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Which he did back in 2007. Did a film called Lucky Life in 2010. Abigail Harm in 2012. I've seen My Last Born in 2015. And now Minari. And I have to say about this movie, A24, when you think about A24 films, this is very much reminiscent to me something like that film Waves, where it is just, it's almost designed to just make you go, come on, movie, like, can I have some happiness? Fuck, like it really is just kind of one of those films that just keeps hitting you in your heart. But at the end of this film, as depressing as this film can get at points, and my God, can it get depressing, this is something I will proudly own when it's available to actually purchase. Right now, you can rent it or go see it in the theater, obviously. I would really recommend, if you have a chance to rent this or go out and support it, please do so, because we need more stuff like this. So when I think about A24 films, stuff like 8th Grade, mid-90s, Midsummer, Hereditary, obviously, then you think of something like, I mentioned, Waves, Lady Bird. This really belongs in that upper echelon of not just A24 films, but of films from 2020. This is an incredibly well done film. And Steven Yeun, his portrayal as Jacob, earning him that Best Actor nomination, well deserved. And while, you know what, never mind. That's a prediction. I will save that for my predictions podcast. But as far as the plot, this family, led by Jacob and Monica, Steven Yeun playing Jacob, Yuri Han playing Monica, they play this Korean American family that moves to the small town, small farm in Arkansas, really in search of their own do-over, their own American dream. And the film really from jump establishes that Jacob and Monica are having problems. And that in itself is this cloud that is constantly hanging over the film. And that was something I have to admit, I have so much, it's a risky move to kind of just drop that into the audience's lap so early on. But Lee Isaac Chung clearly is a bright enough and a smart enough writer and director to realize, oh, I got this. I don't need to worry about it. Because that is a really unfortunate part about this film, is that Jacob and Monica's relationship, the film does a really good job of tricking you into thinking, hey, it might go this way, but it could still go this way. And I am going to try to dance around spoilers a little bit, because this is something I really want people to discover for themselves. But Jacob and Monica, they work at this, I don't want to say a factory, but they work going ahead and like basically working with chicks. The ones that, don't lay eggs, you go ahead and you get rid of. And so they're doing just very much, manual labor in that sense. And then when Jacob isn't working, he's going ahead and working on this farm for them and growing all these crops and everything. And that whole little, I don't even want to call it subplot because it does tie into the main plot as far as him going ahead and having this farm. That is such a beautiful metaphor for Jacob as a person overall, because there is this point where, and there's several points actually in the film that I think about it, that farm, while everything else around Jacob could be falling apart, that farm is the one thing that he is putting so much work into that. And the film does a really good job of showing how determined he is to go ahead and make this farm work, because he feels like if he can make the farm work, he can make his family work. And when outside forces do go ahead and threaten that, you feel it kind of really resonate throughout the whole film, which is something I thought was a really beautifully well done comparison that the film was able to go ahead and do. There is this point where Monica's grandmother comes out and lives with them, Sunja, who's played by Yu Jung Yeon, is what I'm going to go with. And her portrayal, they bring her in, I want to say around the 35-ish minute mark, 40-minute mark. But once she's interjected into the film, she really goes ahead, and it's that very classic clash of, old school, I even hate using that term, but of old school ideals versus this new situation that they're in. And David and her, who's played by Alan Kim, and Alan Kim, he is just the cutest little kid, and I thought he was so incredibly charming, and I was so happy to see him be on a big stage with a film like this. This is his first acting role, at least according to Rotten Tomatoes, and my God, what a great job this young kid did. And I can't wait to see what he does moving forward. But him and Sunja have this hilariously terrible relationship, which he does something to her that I'm just going to say, if I had done this to a family friend when I was a kid, when I was his age, I would still be getting my ass whipped. It's once you see it, you will know. But it is such a, oh God, kid, what are you doing sort of moment. But again, in the best way. But I love that scene so freaking much. But what I will give away is that leads to Jacob telling David to go get a Switch. And so David, because he's smart and not a dummy, goes ahead and gets the smallest Switch. And Jacob just rolls his eyes like this little fucking kid. And Sunja is praising the fact that he was smart enough to get a small Switch, and he doesn't get his ass whipped. And honestly, Lord knows he really should have. After what he did. There is also the point, because this is a film about Korean American family, the film does a really good job of throwing in the racism aspect, because there's this point where they're all at church, and David and Anne, who's the daughter of Jacob Monica, who's played by Noelle Kate Cho, and I am gonna say I really liked her performance. I wish there was just a little more of it. She really doesn't get a lot of scenes where it's, just her, Jacob, or her and Monica, or her and Sunja. I wish they would have fleshed Anne out a little bit more, but they have this whole scene where they go to church together as a family, and they very much stand out in this incredibly white Arkansas church, and they're being very cautious about how they're approaching things. And just the fact that they feel the need to be that cautious, it's a giant, hey, racism's still a thing. And obviously in the 80s, it was still very prominent then too. But I really like the way that they go ahead and portray that, because it never feels mean-spirited, but it feels very like, look, this is still a thing that occurs. I haven't even mentioned him yet, because I don't really know why I haven't mentioned him yet, but Will Patton plays Paul, who becomes his confidant to Jacob as far as how to really set up his farm and everything. And Jacob, to his credit, goes ahead and builds, uh, digs this trench, and he's actually not paying the city because, again, you're on a freaking farm, so you can go ahead and do this yourself. But he really goes ahead and goes out of his way to go ahead and really show Jacob the ropes, and that's something I really appreciated. Paul's a very weird dude. There's this, he has this line he drops to Jacob. He goes, minute I met you, I knew we were gonna be friends, and then starts, speaking in tongues. And Jacob kind of looks at him like, what the fuck? It's a little, it's very weird, but in the best way. But Will Patton does a really good job of playing the character, and really, ironically enough, is probably the person Jacob gets along with the most, and he's this crazy ass guy who just happens to, kind of just hang around. As far as other aspects of the film, I really like the way this film talks about being an American versus embracing your own culture. They have this whole talk about, making, Korean, Korean type meals and everything, and how, Americans don't really eat like this, and just these things that are specific to home. There's this whole thing about chili powder and anchovies that they bring up as far as cooking, and there's a whole little conversation about that I really actually appreciated and went, okay, because that is a constant. And I only want to say it depends on the race, but I think to an extent it does, because I think certain races may go ahead and actually, and you can make this argument, but certain races I believe may actually, there might be more of a penalty for not embracing your heritage. I mean, you can always have that stigma of selling out and becoming too American, and forgetting your roots or where you came from. And that's a constant moving target in a battle that the film does address in a way with the grandma coming to stay with them. And she even points out that, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? And I went, okay, that's a very interesting wrinkle. And the thing is, there's not an answer. There is not a straight answer of how much you incorporate your own culture into the culture that you're supposed to, embrace, as well as being American. I also, I love that David, and you've seen it in the trailer most likely, but David has this whole bit about, you're not a grandma. Grandmas bake cookies. Do you bake cookies? Grandma smells like Korea. And that grandma smells like Korea line was something that made me just go, I cannot express enough how much that made me laugh. And it's funny. It's really freaking funny. As far as other stuff about the film, I really enjoyed Monica and Jacob's relationship as it evolves into where the characters end up. For me, it's such a brutally honest portrayal of potential what marriage can be. How sometimes it's just not always fucking happy, and we clearly, as a country, and this is something I don't think we can even remotely debate, we've romanticized marriage so much, like it's something that everyone takes seriously. And let's be real, not everyone does. Some people will do it just for the financial benefits. Some people just do it just to do it. I mean, once you have drive-ins where you can go ahead and get married, I feel like the sanctity is pretty much fucking gone. So for all those people would go, oh, the gays are ruining marriage. No, we ruined marriage way before you can even try to make a point that gay people did. But I digress. But the way their relationship breaks down and where it ends up, and just the conversations that they have as two people who you can tell at some point really love each other, but just the way things go with this and where the film ends up, I went, okay, that's interesting. I like the way that this that breaks down. And there is something that occurs as far as Jacob telling Monica this very important, like, if this doesn't occur, then this will happen. And I went, that's a really insane thing to say, but it speaks to Jacob's decoration. It speaks to his desperation of how I need to make this one thing work. I almost don't care about anything else in my world because I feel like a failure. And that is something that, as someone who's had friends that have been married and unfortunately that have gotten divorced, that is a thing. Sometimes people are just so laser focused on their own pride, on their own, attempts to go ahead and better themselves. If you have a partner, let alone one you're married to, you cannot forget about your partner. They cannot fall by the wayside. It's really quite, it's a balancing act. It is a constant balancing act. They also throw in something about David as a character in regards to something that's unique to him, not unique specifically to him, but unique to him in the story. You'll recognize it once you hear it. But it's something that I went, okay, I appreciate that you're adding more tension by telling me that David has this that's involved with him. The last I would say 15 minutes of this movie is just such a gut punch. And I mean that as a true compliment because you think the movie's going one way and then it goes, oh, but by the way, and throws this complete curveball at you that does make sense given what they set up, but you just go, well, son of a bitch. Okay. I damn, I didn't know that we were doing this, but I really appreciate that. And the last thing I'll mention, because it is in the trailer, the whole scene where Monica's talking to Jacob, she goes, remember when we said we'd get married, that we'd go to America and save each other. That scene is so incredibly well done. And for me, it's probably Yuri Han's best acting in the film. And it's more near the end. But that scene I thought was just absolutely just heartbreaking and poignant and beautiful and really tear inducing. I was crying. The last shot of this film too is one of my favorite shots in the film in all of 2020. I thought the last shot was just perfect. Masterclass. Absolutely beautiful. And I will say too, without getting too much into it, the grandma coming to stay with Jacob and Monica and the kids, it actually becomes a bigger source of tension because it reminds Monica so much of what they had to give up to go ahead and chase the American dream, which is a whole other conversation that you could really have. I have so much respect and love for everyone in this movie. I know there will be those people, because, dumb people exist, who go, oh, just, it's a classic one of these movies, it's Oscar bait. Why does anyone love this? And I would really encourage you to say, look, maybe go see us on a $5 movie Tuesday. Really actually go in with an open mind and see what you get out of this, because this is something that I really do believe that people can watch, learn from, enjoy. And as I always say, representation will always feel like pandering until it's done more consistently. Just because you put out Princess and the Frog doesn't mean you get to never do a black Disney film again. That's not how this works. Just, it needs to keep being done over and over, not just for the sake of doing it, but representation matters across the board. So anytime something like this kind of randomly pops up, it's going to probably be seen as pandering until it's more commonplace. Again, people who are saying it's pandering, you're dumb. But you know how you keep people from using that argument? By making this more commonplace and not just putting things out for the sake of putting them out, but really taking the care to go ahead and represent everyone. And this film is such a beautiful representation and a very accurate representation of the American dream that we are told is achievable for everyone. And at the end of this film, while I don't think the film gives you an answer, is it achievable for everyone? that's a question that the film will kind of go, all right, you can kind of figure this out for yourself. But at the end of the day, as I get to my final thoughts here, I love all the acting, good Lord, performances across the board here. It's really quite the perfect length. It's an hour 55. It's just under 2 hours. But for that runtime, it really hits in a way I went, yep, this is what I wanted. This checks every box that I really wanted it to. For me, because I did cry actually several times in this. I gotta give it fan-fucking-tastic. This is one of those films I would really tell people, please watch this one. I'd probably tell people watch this one first. Because again, it's not on a streaming service. You do have to pay for it. But this is well worth the money, regardless if you're spending $20 to rent it or if you're spending, $10 to go see it in the theater. This is well worth your money. Support this movie. It deserves your time. It deserves your analysis. So honestly, if you haven't seen this, make a point to watch it. It's really something that you should watch. But I digress. But Minari. Oh, by the way, that was the last thing I was going to say. The reason for the title, as far as what Minari is, I really appreciated that. I wasn't actually aware. Like when they actually broke down basically the reason why the film is called this, I went, oh, that's a pleasant surprise. Like right on. I really, really enjoyed the explanation. So, as I mentioned, go support this movie. We need more stuff like this. We really do. And this was a really pleasant surprise. It's something that I'm really happy I have watched and probably will watch again here in the next week or two. But yeah, absolutely enjoyed the hell out of this. But Minari, what did you think, everyone? Let us know in the comments. You can go ahead and like both our Facebook pages at The Reel, that's REEL Pineapple, and you can like our gaming page, Real Pineapple Games, on Facebook. Don't forget to follow yours truly on the Twitter at JHunterRealPineapple. You can follow Scott on Twitter at Nearman1st. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on SoundCloud, Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and TuneUp, to name a few spots at The Real Pineapple. Thank you so much for listening. We'll have reviews up here soon for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Mighty Ducks Game Changers, which I'm actually excited to get more into that, as well as some other stuff coming down the pipeline as well, including a full series review for BoJack Horseman, which I'm really excited to get into that. But everyone, thank you so much for listening. Please take care of each other. Get your COVID shot. Wear a mask. And please stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon.